You're on.
Okay. All right, guys. My name is Dr. Brett Brimhall. I'm a practicing chiropractor in the Phoenix area. I've been training physicians for the last 25 years on health and wellness and specifically on dietary supplements. And so if you guys come on, try to mute yourself if you would. And so you've been invited to this call by somebody that cared about you. And we are a community of like-minded people that we all have, a lot of us have been introduced to the concept of biohacking through a company like Life Vanish. We'll maybe talk a few about those products, but mostly this is a conversation about the importance of understanding your body and how to help get well and stay well. And we're going to specifically focus on autoimmune processes. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go to work. Love it. All right. So, Eileen, can you see that okay?
Got it.
Perfect. So for those of you that aren't familiar with what an autoimmune condition is, it's where your body attacks itself. And so it can literally happen in any tissue in the body. It can happen to the brain, it can happen to, and if the brain, they'll call it multiple sclerosis or autism. It can happen in the hands, rheumatoid arthritis. It can happen in the bones. It can happen in muscles, ligaments, lungs. And I want you to look at the triggers right here, which is super key. Bottom line is your body starts attacking itself. That's what happened. It literally starts attacking itself. And the question would be is why? What started it? How do I avoid it ever happening in the future? Right? And what if I already have it going on now? What can I do? All right. So there's a process that breaks down to where your immune system, this normally a system designed to identify foreign invaders and stop them. And also it's a system designed to repair tissue. It now becomes on the attack. And it happens for different reasons, but here are a few of those. Stress can do it, right? Different hormonal changes in your body can do it. Heavy metals can do it. Foods can do it. Pesticides, poisons can do it. And I'm going to talk about another thing that the system breaks down, specifically known as your digestive tract, where it can start the triggering in the process. And I've seen this time and time again. So I want you to, when it kind of come from that at the end and come back, what I mean by that is this. When somebody is being treated for an allergy, which an allergy is an upregulated immune response, or an autoimmune condition, I want you to think about what medications they're given. So they're typically giving something to something that suppresses the immune function. So the immune system is upregulated. So the question is why? All right. And the other thing they're doing, they're typically given steroids, right? Steroids to stop the progression of, right? So the question becomes is what systems are breaking down or what systems aren't able to keep up in order for this process to start taking hold. So one of the things you got to keep in mind is this: when somebody is given something to suppress the immune system, that means it's going to be more susceptible to other things, right? So if your immune system is being suppressed, it's like your military had been shut down, right? So you're going to be under attack from invaders anyway, and so now your body cannot handle it, and so it can lead to other problems. That's why when you read the side effects from different medication immunosuppressants, a lot of them are big and scary. The other side is they're typically giving people steroids, right? Steroids, and so I want you to know and think this question is: what system normally produces a steroid in your body? That is your adrenal gland. So when somebody is having issues with allergies or autoimmune conditions, it's pretty much a guarantee that their body's adrenal gland systems are not functioning well, and so because of that, they can't produce their own cortisol. That being said, if you're really going to improve the process, we need to consider what to do to improve that process. Because and people say, well, my mom had rheumatoid or my grandma had MS, so I have it. Well, if that was the case, you would be born with it. If it's purely 100% genetic, you'd be born with it. Like you'd be born with the disease process. Okay. And you would all develop at the exact same age. If it's truly a blueprint issue, right? So you may have the blueprint, you may have a genetic variable that could be triggered. So you have to control the controllables, which control the triggers. Now the fun part. All right. So what's the purpose of this stuff? Like, why do we eat? Right? Why do we eat food? And I chose this one purposely that talks about real foods. The alphabet All right. The alphabet that we eat, everything we eat is supposed to make you, right? That's its job. So when your whole digestive system process is designed to take in food, convert it into smaller particles to nourish you, feed you, and allow you to run. That's its job. It's not designed to make your brain happy when you're sad. It's not. Okay. So bad quote, but I'm going to quote a friend of mine. But they says, "You're not a dog. Don't reward yourself with food." That's just a quote. If you don't like it, sorry. Okay. So, but many of us are doing just that. So this is what happens. We eat food. Excuse me. We eat food that's designed to become part of us. So what that means is everything you eat becomes part of you. So there's something that happens throughout this system known as the digestive system, or what we call the microbiome system, that goes gets an array, and it starts an autoimmune process. Right. So your body, every single one of us, whether you have a diagnosed condition or not, has some level of autoimmunity or allergies and or sensitivities based upon how well this system right here functions. All right. So its job is to digest, assimilate, and break down things we eat and eliminate the things we don't need. So the question I want you to ask yourself is, when you're eating these things, how many real things are you eating so that your body's not having to eliminate a lot of stuff that doesn't need, or actually having to clean up the message you're making? Because the more stress you put on this system right here, here's what happens. A process known as leaky gut. So I'm going to close that out so you guys can see it. All right. And when you have leaky gut, what this means is the normal processes broke down. And so when you were eating foods, your bodies don't break them down correctly. So it gets through the intestinal barrier, which is kind of like the moat, or that allows stuff to not get into the castle. And there's things that damage this moat. And when that happens, you start a process that can eventually lead into what we call intestinal barrier dysfunctions, food allergies or intolerances. We call them sensitivities, immune system abnormalities, and eventually autoimmunity. And when it's at that point, you have to understand, when you're at this point, you've already burned through these other things. So the bottom line is, you have to go back and fix the problem that started, which is the intestinal barrier, right? So you have to repair that system. So that's why the microbiome is so critical for us, is to make sure we understand, what does this need? All right. So this tissue right here is known as an epithelial membrane. All you need to know about that is, check it out. Super cool. Your skin is also the same membrane. It's the same type of tissue. It's known as epithelial tissue to protect. It's a barrier. Your skin is a barrier. It keeps things out that aren't supposed to be in, and things that are in that are supposed to be in. Your intestinal cells have the same process. They're supposed to keep things out that are supposed to be out, and keep things in that are supposed to be in. But both of them can selectively absorb and eliminate things if they're functioning properly. All right. If they're functioning properly. So if you look at these little things here, right, there's things like drugs and other things, foods that we eat, physical stressors, emotional stressors, that literally can damage these. And we've all heard, hey, don't stress yourself out because you get an ulcer. Well, an ulcer would be a manifestation of a massive leaky gut, right? Depending on what part of the intestinal tract it affects on. Bottom line is, then we have to heal that gut function. So depending on where you are and what's going on in your world, now it comes back to this question: how far along this process are you? Right? So are you just dealing with, hey, Eileen, you mute yourself, which I love. I love the wow. Which is great. Actually, we planned this, guys, the wow. Really love it. It's kind of fun. Because what I love about this, and this is what I hope happens, and I'm glad that you actually did that, Eileen, because when we're learning these things, we're not learning these typically in our schools, and we're not learning from our physicians. But these should create ahas for us to say, oh my gosh, I can have control over this or that if I can do those things. And that's really the bottom line of what we're trying to do with this group, is to give people good information that they can go and check and say, okay, how can I apply that in my own life? Right? Because this talks about the process you can do. So we have to heal this gut lining up. And what does that mean? Just like if you have a sunburn, right? And your skin gets burnt, you have to put aloe vera on it, right? You have to do something to heal that membrane up. So the intestinal tract needs the exact same thing. It needs things to heal this process up, right? So that's at the foundation of what you have to do. Then, as that's healing up, we have to quit traumatizing it, right? So if you have a sunburn, you've got to get out of the sun, right? So if you're eating things or around things that are causing problems, you have to identify them and get rid of them. So you want to identify those foods that aren't healthy for you and get them out of your diet. The foods that are healthy for you, put them back in your diet. Okay. And then you have to say, okay, what tissues have been damaged that I now need to find a way to support, right? And help them to repair, right? And because depending on the person, right? So let's just say there's somebody dealing with rheumatoid arthritis. Well, we have to start improving this process, the process of how the joint heals. Or what if it's a brain inflammation? We have to work on the way what the brain needs. So the brain, right? Guess what? It needs a lot of omega-3 fatty acids and B12 and folic acid. Well, what does the joint need? Well, it needs calcium, magnesium, zinc, a lot of other things like that. And it needs a lot of fatty acids. The thyroid, right? Every tissue needs different things. But here's the cool thing. If you can get the intestinal tract working right, and you can improve the system of repair, get your body to in a better repair state. And when I mean system, every cell. We have a lot of cells, and every cell has been what they call differentiated, and it changed into something else. So maybe it's a thyroid cell or an intestinal cell, but every one of those cells have a system in them that allows them to make energy. Every one of those cells have a system in them that allows them to turn on repair systems. Every cell in the body has a system that's designed to allow it to produce what's known as sirtuins or communication molecules. So if you can get those systems to improve inside the cell and you give it enough time, it can a lot of times help improve the damage that has been done. Right. And that's what I want you to kind of grab hold of, because I want you to eat a healthy alphabet. Okay. And if you're not eating a healthy alphabet, it's literally like trying to spell letters or spell word without all the letters. And I think I said this before in another one, but if I told you to spell cat and you had the full alphabet, you spell CAT, and you can see the picture of a cat, what it looks like, right? But I say, hey, I'm gonna take away the C, you might spell KAT. Well, that's not the same thing. So your body has to make do with what it has. And if that happens, then you're gonna break down. Okay. So here's the bottom line. If you want to take a picture, this is great. If you want to improve your body, whether say I already have a process going on I don't like, all right, you're already in a hole. So guess what? You got to dig out of that hole first. And then it's going to take you longer before you can plant a garden. If you've already damaged the soil, it's just going to take you a while. All right. So, but you can't get frustrated if you've been in a hole a long time if you're not getting better tomorrow. All right. Because it took time to get you where you are. It will get better if you do the right thing long enough. Right. The body is programmed to get better. Right. But the more right things you do, the better. So here's some specific things. Eat real foods. Balance the stress in your life. And real foods is anything you can hunt, grow, or pick, to keep it simple. Nothing that's can, or processed. Get 7+ hours of sleep at night, solid sleep. All right. Remove allergies and sensitivities, because allergies and sensitivities, like we saw in that picture, lead to dysfunction, right? To autoimmunity, which perpetuates the process, rebuilds your adrenal glands. And we're going to talk more about that in the future, but rebuild your adrenal glands, rebuild your GI function. Replace enzymes or hydrochloric acid, which is allow your digestive system to break down the food more appropriately. De-stress, all right? Activate your cells through a process known as nutrigenomics and biohacking, so that it turns on your body's energy production, the repair systems, and the vitality, right? There are specific foods, diets, and supplements that help do these things, right? And so if you have questions specifically on that, get back to the person that invited you this. We're here to help you with that. But you can apply a lot of these skill sets right now without anything. But don't do it alone. This is a community we're creating, and we want to have lots and lots of people here to help improve the health of the world, because the world needs it in a big, big way. So every Wednesday we do one of these, and we'll start ones next week, focus more on trying to answer some of these questions on, hey, how do I choose the right supplement? What do I look for? And some other things like that. So Eileen, if you would, and if you stop the recording.